Hello and welcome. My name is Marianne Roberts from Express Media Group, and today we're talking about batting. Batting is what makes a quilt a quilt. It's the piece of fibre that goes between the quilt top and the backing fabric that makes the actual sandwich. Here is a sample of an old treasure of a quilt. You can see that it's some fairly rough cotton batting pinned between the backing fabric and the quilt top, with the quilt top marked ready for quilting. But when you're choosing batting for your own quilt and you always choose the same one, perhaps it's time to reconsider what quilt batting to choose and the reason. So how do you choose the correct batting? Just take a minute to think about who you're making the quilt for and how frequently the quilt will be washed. There are four main materials in batting, namely cotton, bamboo, wool and polyester fibres. So this quilt is an example of cotton batting, and it's beautiful to quilt with, and it sews like a dream whether by hand or machine. And what's good about cotton batting is that it adheres to the quilt top and the backing really well, and when it's washed it will shrink and give a lovely old-fashioned look. Cotton batting is generally needle punched, and sometimes it comes with a scrim, which is a fine layer over the top of the batting, so that when it's needle punched the fibres are all held together, and this avoids beading in the quilt. And beading happens when the fibres actually creep through the stitching holes in the quilt to the outer surface of it, which is not required or desired. Some hand quilters prefer to use batting without a scrim, while others do like to use it for the firmness that it adds to the batting. Another natural fibre is wool batting, and wool batting is really good to use in a quilt that you know won't be washed as frequently as a quilt with cotton batting. What I like about wool batting is that it holds its shape really well, and as you're quilting the quilt it's firmer than cotton, and when you're finished making the quilt it still holds its shape, and it's a lot warmer than cotton or bamboo. The third batting that most quilters prefer is polyester batting, and polyester batting is good value on price and it holds its loft really well. This example here shows how it's held its shape, and you can see with the polyester batting it's all a synthetic fibre, and the thing to be careful of when you're using polyester batting is to remember that it doesn't breathe like the natural fibres, and it can get too warm. And it's not recommended for children's quilts or cot quilts. There is a trick with polyester batting if you're buying it in a bag, and the trick is to remove it from the bag and let it relax for a day or two before you actually start to baste the quilt or mark it for quilting. Most battings do shrink slightly after they're washed, so it's really important to consider who you're making the quilt for and the purpose of the quilt, whether it's a special gift for somebody, for an exhibition or an heirloom. So it's a good idea to experiment with a small sample before you invest a lot of time, money and effort. Visit Craft Lovers Megastore for the latest batting supplies.